Hello everybody, welcome back to the Dallas City of Learning Summer Soars program presented to you by the Writers Garret. I am Miss Erin, your instructor. For today's activity, you'll need your writer's book, a pencil, and either the blank star maps that look like these, or a piece of blue or black construction paper, and your sheet of star stickers. You can find all these items in your supply packet. In ancient times, even when people knew almost nothing about the universe, we've always been watching the night sky, trying to make sense of the stars, the sun, and moon. Many ancient cultures observed that the stars in the sky moved throughout the year, even though it was really the earth moving, not the sky. They studied the patterns of stars for symbols that might tell them something important about their history or their future. We now call these symbols in the stars constellations. And by studying these constellations, we can learn a lot about the stories that were important to different ancient cultures around the world. We would call these stories myths. Stories passed down by tradition that explain the history of a people, often as an explanation for a natural phenomenon not yet understood scientifically, such as the changing of the seasons or the weather. I want to tell you two very different myths about some stars you might have seen for yourself in the night sky. The ancient Greeks and Romans believed that the constellations were put into the sky by Zeus to symbolize the victories of ancient heroes like Perseus and Hercules, and other battles, events, and legends. One of these legends is of the hunter Orion. Orion was a great hunter and provided the daily meat for the meals of the gods. One day, Artemis, the moon goddess and goddess of the hunt, asked if she could accompany Orion on his hunt. He agreed. And on the next day, as they were hunting in the woods, they saw a deer. Orion carefully fitted an arrow to his bow and shot. The arrow flew so straight and true that it struck the deer and killed it instantly. Artemis was impressed and pleased. At dinner that evening, Artemis told everyone, including Zeus, of Orion's great ability with his bow. All of the praise pleased Orion, who vowed to impress Artemis even more the next day. At dawn, Orion went into the forest alone, where he shot every animal he found. He piled them near the door of Artemis's house, knocked on the door, and invited her outside to see the great surprise he had for her. When she saw the great pile of dead animals, Artemis was horrified. Unbeknownst to Orion, Artemis was also the protector of animals and punished those who killed more than they could eat. In her anger, she stomped her foot on the ground, and from the dust arose a great scorpion, which stung Orion on the heel, causing him to die in great pain. But in honor of his great service to the gods, Zeus placed his constellation in the sky. Meanwhile, in ancient China, astronomers divided the sky into 28 pieces that they called mansions, each one containing a unique group of stars. Each group was one part that made up 4 gigantic beasts who lived in the north, south, east, and west. The stars that we know as the constellation of Orion were to the Chinese just a smaller part of the white tiger of the west. The white tiger was associated with the season of fall. The tiger was seen as the king of all beasts and as the protector of the people. Isn't it amazing that though these two cultures were looking at the same stars, the meanings they got from them were completely different? Our job now is to imagine that we come from a forgotten culture thousands of years ago, write our own myth story, and create a new constellation. In your writer's book, brainstorm ideas for the constellation story you want to tell. Answer these questions to help you flesh out your story. Who, what, where, and why? Who came up with this constellation? Where do they live? Is their land large or small? Do they live in a tiny village, a huge city? Describe the land where they live. Is it a desert, frozen by ice, by the ocean, a forest? What do they do for work? What do they do for fun? What kind of animals would they see? What is your constellation? A made-up creature? An animal? A human? A plant? Why did they imagine this constellation? What story or event does it come from? Does it teach us a lesson or remind us of something important? Write the story of your constellation from the point of view of the culture who created it. On the following page, write a paragraph about the culture the constellation comes from, the culture you imagined into existence. Pause the video now, and I'll see you when you're finished writing. And we're back. Let me share with you about the culture that I imagined first. The Danube people are from West Africa. They believe the stars are our ancestors. They believe that everything in nature, from the birds to the insects, are all messages from the great rulers of the past. Their people are placed in the stars as gifts and in remembrance of their acts of bravery and love. This is a story told to remind us how to overcome our fears. Now let me read to you my constellation. In the lush green hills of West Africa, there sat a small village by the ocean. It was ruled by King Tofa and his son Prince Yemi. Yemi dreamed of becoming a great king like his fearless father, but he was afraid of everything: animals, bugs, and especially the dark. But Yemi knew in order to be a king, he would have to learn to face his fears. One day, a great darkness fell over the village. Villagers started disappearing, and locusts destroyed the crops. King Tofa, not sure what to do, went to the Danube priestesses of the village to ask them to talk to the ancestors about how to remove the great darkness. They told the king that he must send his only son Yemi to fight the great darkness. Tofa refused. He loved him too much, and he knew about Yemi's fear of the dark. But unknown to King Tofa, Yemi had followed him and heard what the priestesses had said. The next day, he set off toward the great darkness. Yemi fought hard and defeated the darkness, and it was lifted from the village. But Yemi was wounded and died in battle. But because of his great sacrifice to his people, the ancestors placed a crown of stars in the night sky to represent the great king that Yemi would have been. Now you have two options. For your first option, start with a blank sheet of construction paper for your night sky. Using the star stickers, make a picture of your constellation. Think of it like a connect the dot puzzle, where the stars will be the main points you can draw lines between to make your shape. Or, if you want to create your constellation on the star map with stars that appear in the real night sky, use a colored pencil to connect the stars that make up your constellation. Then, over the stars, draw the figure your constellation stands for. And we're back. Let me share with you the constellation that I created using the star stickers. I call it Yemi's Crown. Here is the constellation that I created using existing stars that are already in the night sky. These three stars are representative of the three Danube priestesses that foretold of the events that would set Yemi's life in motion. I hope you enjoyed making a myth today. Thanks so much for joining me. See you next time.